AI is wreaking havoc in search, and if you haven't seen your organic traffic dips recently, you probably will start to see those dips come about very soon. And that's because Google's made a lot of changes to their search engine results page. If you haven't been paying attention, do a search for an informational query about your brand or something like that, and you'll notice that an AI overviews will pop up, and all the information that you have on your website will probably be shown on the AI overview sections, which means that your number one ranking is further down the list. It might even come after the Google snippet. It might even come after the maps. So the organic ranking is pushed further and further down that search engine page. And depending on the type of search you did, you might see a map, you might see shopping lists and things like that. So the search engine results page, SERP as we like to call it in the business, is always evolving. And with AI, it has changed quite a bit. And for a lot of people, what that means is that their rankings have remained number one. At least that's what Google Analytics is telling them, is that their rankings is number one, or the SEM Rush or Moz or whatever they're using. They're seeing number one rankings, but they're not seeing the same level of traffic. In fact, I have had experiences where you're still number one across the board, but you're seeing a dip in traffic. And so in this episode, I'm going to help you understand why that is happening. I'm going to point out the 4 things that are killing your organic traffic. And I'm going to give you 3 tips on what you can do to make sure that you can get that traffic back, or at least adapt your strategy, because AI in 2025 is very smart when it comes to search. And with the rise of search AI bots, with the rise of ChatGPT, Google's losing impression share, market share in that area. Things are changing. And so you need to adapt your SEO strategy, your organic strategy accordingly. Don't panic. I'll tell you exactly the 4 things that are happening, and I'm going to give you 3 really good tips that if you implement them, is going to result in your website getting the being positioned for success as you head into the second half of 2025. So see you on the other side as we talk about how AI is changing your organic traffic. Welcome to the latest episode of Corner Your Market podcast. I'm glad you're here. On this podcast, I talk about everything related to digital marketing, from website design and development to SEO, PPC, email marketing, social media, analytics, and everything in between. So if you're a small business owner, a marketing manager in a company, or an entrepreneur, and you want to get yourself up to speed on digital marketing related topics, this is the place for you. So like and share my videos, subscribe to my videos, and every other week you'll be receiving fresh new content that will help you grow your business by helping you improve your digital marketing. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I think 2025 is going to go down in history as the inflection year when it comes to SEO, because right now AI overviews, AIO, is killing SEO traffic. And so in this episode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about the state of AI search as of 2025, the middle of 2025. I'm going to talk about how the SERP, search engine results page, is changing and how it has evolved in the last 3 to 4 months and the impact that it's having on organic traffic. I also want to talk to you about the different type of search terms and what triggers an AIO. AI overviews, AIO, that's what we mean by that. So we'll talk about the 4 things that are killing organic traffic and what you should do about it. There really are 4 very specific things right now happening in the Google world and the search world that is probably killing your organic traffic. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to give you an overview of everything there, and then you can just kind of get some tips and tricks on how you can overcome that. So with that, let's get started. So as I mentioned in the intro, this episode really is about how the Google search engine results page, SERP, has changed. For certain types of searches, you will notice that you're now getting an AI overview. And so that AI overview typically takes up the first third, or maybe the first, depending on how big your screen is. at least the first third of your page. You can always expand it a little bit more if you want. And if you do expand it, depending on the type of search term that you've searched for, the whole screen now is taken over by AI overviews. And that's in desktop, right? So the latest numbers that I've seen says that AI overviews is triggered about 13% of the time. That's according to some thought leaders that I follow, and I'll put the citations on any metrics that I use in my show notes so you can follow those links and learn more. And then the AI overviews is usually triggered more for informational queries, and it's more on desktop and less on mobile, because part of it is on the mobile experience. If AIO takes up a third or half of the mobile results page, then that could be a problem for people, right? And so Google quite hasn't figured out how they're going to show AIOs in their mobile experience, but it is starting to become more and more as part of their results. It's also less AIO is less on near me type searches. So if you do a search for pool cleaning service near me, or if you do a search for dentist near me or something like that, that's less likely to trigger a AIO. A product search, so if you're looking for, like yesterday I was looking for, although it depends on the type of product, if you're looking for cars or you're looking for HVAC systems or something like that, you're probably going to get like a Google shopping page or something, and you're not going to get an AIO. However, I do notice that if you ask it a question like recommend or best, HDMI to mini HDMI converter or whatever it is, that could trigger an AIO. And so really what they're trying to do is, as we've looked at some of these search queries, AIO results generally come up when Google is looking at your informational intent, right? So if for search terms that are informational intent type search terms, so for instance, what is compound interest, how to clean air fryer, right? Or difference between tooth extraction and dental implant, something like that. That's an informational query. For that, you're going to get an AIO overviews right away. Or if you also have a clear question structure. So for instance, what is or how to, like how to replace the engine air filter on a 2022 Hyundai Sportage or whatever. Now, I don't know if that Hyundai makes a Sportage, but that's just the name that came up, right? So if you have a clear question structure, that also is likely to trigger an AIO. Long tail and low competition keywords are also likely to do that, just because long tail terms typically have at least 4 or 5 words in them, and people don't just randomly put words in there. They are asking a question, or they're saying, how do I, like for instance, I did a long tail search for my laptop last night. Like, does this model of Asus, whatever, have this feature, right? So that's a long tail, low competition type question, and that is also going to trigger a question. An AIO. Fact-based and neutral topics also, that's kind of a given. Like fact-based, like what is the weather like in, Timbuktu in July, right? That's a fact-based type question that's kind of neutral in many ways, and that's informational. It'll just grab it and put it. So the main thing that AIO results in is it basically, so anyway, before I get into the main things here. So there are certain types of queries though that Google has kind of stayed away from when it comes to AIO. Sensitive or controversial topics. So if you ask it, should you end DEI, right? It's in the news, it's controversial. I doubt Google's going to try to give you an answer on that, right? It's not going to give you, oh yeah, you should or you shouldn't or whatever, right? So things like that, it's not going to do. They've also tried to stay away from money, investment, healthcare type questions, like should I take this pill, or if I invest this much, how much will I make next year, or something like that, right? So they do appear, I'm not saying they don't, but they're less likely to appear when you're doing your money, your life. Recipes, quick factual questions, they don't get triggered. News and current events obviously doesn't get AIO triggers. branded navigational or transactional queries. So Amazon login, people I can't believe people do that. They're like, if you got to log into your, your Cox account or something like that, Cox login page, that's not going to send you an AIO review. So those things don't result in an AI overview. So now, what is the impact of AI overviews? It's creating this phenomenon called zero-click search. What zero-click search really means is people do a search for, let's say they do a search for, the transmission, repair shop. Let's say, should I replace my transmission shop? Should I replace my transmission? Right? Or where is the closest transmission? Anyway, should I replace my transmission? If you do that search, that answer is going to be available to you on the AI overview, so you do not need to click on that answer to go to the answer provider's page to actually get that answer, right? So that results in a zero-click search, meaning you did not click on anything to go to get the answer that you are seeking. Traditionally, in the past, all searches resulted in a click, right? Because you had a listing back in the day. Think of 2001 search engine, right? You do a query and you have websites that are listed. You had to click on one of the websites to get your answer, right? So that was 100% clicks. Somebody clicked somewhere, they went somewhere, or they restarted the search, right? So now you have a lot of zero-click searches. And so what that's doing is that's messing up our analytics a little bit, because for a lot of our clients, we've spent so much effort and time getting them optimized on their content and everything like that. And when we look at their rankings, we see that their rankings are number one across the board, right? And so because their ranking is number one across the board, you think that traffic is increasing. Traditionally, that's been the case. You get number one ranking on 10 search terms versus number 4 ranking on those terms, your traffic is going to be 10x. Different. Now, I have seen so many analytics reports where rankings are number one, but organic traffic is going down. And the reason for that is because of zero-click search, right? People are getting the answer that they want and they don't need to come to your website. So the impact of that is that those search queries are not resulting in traffic. But on the flip side, which is very interesting to me, and I can't validate this. It's not a long study. It's not an international study. It's not a study commissioned by the Digital Institute Enterprise or whatever. It's based on the 70 or 80 client reports that I look at on a monthly basis. What I'm noticing is even though traffic might have fallen, engagement on the website is still consistent month over month, meaning conversions haven't dropped, phone calls haven't necessarily dropped, and things like that, which tells me that those informational queries that were resulting traffic to your website are now not coming to your website, but they were not planning on calling you anyway. So that's my hypothesis on that. I don't know how it's going to break out or play itself out over the next few years, but that's kind of what we are seeing on our end, right? So anyway, AI overviews is being triggered, which means a lot of click-through rates are going down on organic traffic. So it might be killing your organic traffic. Now, the downside of losing that informational query is that person that conducted the informational query comes to your website. They might not have been thinking about buying, but maybe after reading your post or reading your pages, they say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give you a call. So maybe what we're losing now is those marginal queries on the outlier queries that would have happened if AI overviews or zero-click didn't exist. So that's a real problem for businesses. That can be a real problem for businesses. Now, the third thing that is really creating a lot of issues right now is, I don't know if people have been paying attention or not, but Google's search engine search market share fell below 90% for the first time since 2015. And that happened, I think, in November or October of this past year, right? 2024. That's interesting, right? Because that shows you that people now have other sources of search engines, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok, whatever it is that you're using can also provide the same kind of questions same kind of answers that you were thinking of getting before, right? So because of those other sources of information, the search volume coming from Google is now going down, which kind of shows itself on your analytics report, which may not be bad, but what that means is that now you have to make sure that your visibility stays up with these AI chatbots, right? So the rise of AI-powered search engines like Perplexity is positioned as an AI-powered search engine, is very interesting to me because I played around with that for a little bit and I'm comparing results. So far, the results are very similar in the sense that the companies that we have optimized for are maintaining their number one, or they don't really report number one. Let's just say a high status. So I compared some of my top performing client websites last week. I punched in a particular question in Google for that term, looked at their rankings and looked at where they were, and I punched that into like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and some of these other AI engines, and I just compared what it looked like, and I found that if you've been optimizing for Google, you're generally going to do well on these search engines, right? So this fall in search engine traffic to me is not a us problem. That's a problem for Google, right? I think that if you have been following Google's best practices over the last 10, 15 years or 3 or 4 years, then I think these AI search engines are probably going to use similar factors to rank you because those are just sound principles that Google has used over the years. But what that does mean is that you have to pay attention to habits and demographics and uses and things like that. So don't expect somebody in ChatGPT to wade through 10 different listings to find yours, right? So the way ChatGPT is presenting these search results is, if you say recommend a dog dentist near me, it's just going to give 1 or 2 and give you reasons, commentary on why they believe that that you should visit 1 or 2 of these, right? So which means if you're 4, 5, and 6, you're not going to be considered, which means that if you're going to be 1, 2, and 3, you have to have sufficient content on your website for ChatGPT to be able to determine that you are a good provider, which means you have to spend a lot of time producing content to feed the AI engine, right? So content production will remain a foundation of any digital marketing strategy that you ever do. So blogging, writing, and communicating your value proposition, the services you provide, the audience you serve, that will stay important. And don't use AI to do it because that doesn't really do anything for you, right? That's the third thing, right? So the rise of these other engines, right? So you might see a traffic drop from Google, but that does not mean that maybe traffic is going to drop across the board. It might just be reported as a referral coming from ChatGPT. So the search traffic metric might be falling, but the direct traffic or the referral traffic section of your report, if you're doing Google Analytics, I'm imagining Google Analytics here, that part's going to go up, right? So, and then another thing that is kind of, it's not exactly AI, but I think it is Google catering to the changing landscape, right? Speed has always been important in search. And so the latest Google algorithm update from March of 2025 has really elevated the need for sound technical SEO and UX optimization for your website, particularly on mobile. And I cannot emphasize that more. If you look at the core metrics, your site core metrics on desktop versus site core metrics on mobile, I have seen sites that have 99% green everywhere on desktop and red everywhere on mobile. And the reason for that is They are prioritizing the way in which your website loads on mobile, the timing of everything, the size of the images, and all the assets that you have on mobile. They're scrutinizing it more. So you're going to have LCP issues. You're going to have all these different issues, INP issues, and things like that. And if you don't know what those are, Google those terms. Look in your Google Search Console. It'll give you a whole section on what needs to be improved and things like that. So it all goes down to mobile usability, that mobile user interface and things like that. And so this past 2 or 3 months, I have spent so much time just going through all of our client websites and updating the image compression plugins that we might have been using. Maybe they're not doing a very good job. Comparing different compression plugins, making sure I have the right one, and have even in some cases done a relayout of the blog page on mobile or the main content pages on mobile and took out images that are unnecessary. That very cute cat picture might have been really fun to put, but it's 2 megabytes, bro. It's taking up too much time. Even the compression, even when it compresses it 35% or 40%, it might still be too much. And the key number in this seems to be 2.5 seconds. So if your site does not load in 2.5 seconds on a mobile device, that page is going to get dinged by Google and you're going to lose traffic. So those are the 4 main drivers that could be killing your online organic traffic, right? So now that I've given you the lay of the land of the problem, what is the solution? Well, there's 3 solutions I can offer you, right? So the first solution is stick to EEAT: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. I did an entire podcast on this a couple of episodes ago, maybe a month ago, whenever it was. Go listen to that podcast. I'll put a link in my show notes for that podcast, but I cover what you need to do to stay in compliance with Google's EEAT: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And then when it comes to, this isn't just applicable to Google, but also very applicable to the AI search engines, is authorship. The person that is writing the blog post and the authorship of that person and the credibility of that person is extremely important. And so what I would recommend that you do is invest time in building an author page, not just an about page, but an author page. So if you have let's say you're a dental clinic and you've been blogging for 5 or 6 years, let's create for you a dentist author page where we have your picture, compressed, really low, I'm not saying low resolution, but just a small picture. Let's have a really solid bio about you. Let's link to all the different schools you've gone to. Let's list all of the trainings that you've done. And let's at the bottom link to your LinkedIn profile, right? And then on LinkedIn, make sure that your page is verified. So yes, you do have to give them your driver's license, which I resisted for so many years, but I finally gave in to get that verified badge, right? Let's get you verified on LinkedIn. Let's also get your page up to speed, all the things filled up, following LinkedIn best practices and things like that. And let's also engage a little bit. Let's put some of those blog posts that you've written over the years in LinkedIn to build a little bit of an audience there. So what you're trying to do there is you're trying to build authorship, right? So that kind of works really well for, people that have very high qualifications, but even if you don't have high qualifications but you do have a qualification, because obviously you're writing for a reason, because you have some kind of expertise. So anyway, build an author page that you can really promote to Google so that they can view you and see your authorship, see your thought leadership, and then get you the appropriate rankings and things like that. So that's the second thing you could do. The third thing you could do is take a hard, cold look at user experience on mobile, right? So do the core metrics analysis that Google offers free on their web developer section of their website. Just do a Google search for it and then put your URL in there. See what it says needs to be improved. Most of the time these days, it's image compression. It's layout, like how the site loads, like the order in which it loads, right? So you might not know this, but when the site loads, there's a certain order in which the site is loading on your mobile device, right? Does it load the header image first? Or does the web page need the header image to load first before it loads the text? Or is it vice versa, right? So you need to pay attention to that. You need to talk to your developer about that. You need to kind of have a really open conversation about what is absolutely needed on that page and what you could do without on that page, right? So no sacred cows, bare bones as much as possible, clear, lots of white space, easy to read, like taps on the web. That's what the INP is trying to measure, is the taps. Like if somebody can tap, how many times do they have to tap before that link works? I've been on pages where I'm tapping. I'm like, what the heck, man? It's not working. Probably because the tap window is not big enough for that image or whatever it is that the developer did. So anyway, so that's kind of the things that you could do. You can always send me a question. You can always leave a comment, and you can always reach out to me depending on what you want to do. But just to recap, so in this episode, I talked about the ways in which AI is impacting search. I talked about, the AI overviews and how that's leading to zero-click search behavior. And then we also talked about, what did we talk about? We talked about the AI-driven search engines that are taking traffic away from Google. And then I gave you some tips on user experience and how to improve that. And then I also gave you some 3 very, very important pointers in terms of what you could do in order to be able to get your site to continue to rank well. So there you go. That's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Like and share this. Share it wherever you want. And then let me know if you have any questions. So with that, I leave you and I say happy marketing.